Welcome. This is the Venice Flying Carousel studio. I'm Robin Murez, and I'm building this carousel for our public park by the Venice Public Library. That's on Venice Boulevard. It's Venice themed. All of the animals bring out stories of the history of Venice. Right here I'm just doing a little sanding on the Ray Bradbury rocket ship. So Ray Bradbury was the father of science fiction, and he lived and worked much of his career in Venice. So actually I've carved a portrait of Ray looking out the front portal here. And then the rocket ship, just like all the carousel animals, is adopted or sponsored by families in Venice. And as they do, they collaborate with me on designs. So that's how this second portrait here is of my neighbor who sponsored it, and so he got top billing. But it's you know, all of the elements of the carousel again bring out stories. So here's actually, this is the Tonga turtle. I don't know if you can see her. So there's a story of that the Native Americans who were here in Venice have of the creation of California, and it's based on sea turtles. So we had to have a sea turtle and honor our Tonga ancestors. And the family that sponsored the turtle, well, the mom grew up in Belize, and this toucan riding on the shoulder of the sea turtle is the bird of Belize. So again, it kind of adds more stories. And then the boys of that family, they brought over several toys that are their favorites. And I then carved their toys riding on a miniature train along the back of the turtle, because Venice had a miniature train. When Abbot Kinney created Venice, there were the canals, and then on the roadways there was this miniature train that brought people throughout the neighborhood. So the other animals that you see here are the snail, otherwise known as the escargot. That's the sponsor of it, that requested it, is the nursery school on Abbot Kinney, École Clairefontaine, and they wanted a regal snail. So I carved the snail with the crown on it. So the crown has elements that are about Venice history. It has a gondola, and again it has a miniature train. And I started carving it in about this time last year, when we were just starting this age of Corona, and Corona means crown. So the crown of our snail also has this period of recent history. You can see some coronaviruses on the crown of the snail. There are a few around on it. So it's a period of history that we can look back on and be glad that we are here on this side of it. Then we have the flying unicorn, otherwise known as a pegacorn. And Emery is the little girl who designed this with me, and she asked that there be some hidden fairies. So there are some fairies carved here under the mane that are doing things that Emery likes to do. This one is a flying, holding a heart, and this one is with a paintbrush, and here's one reading a book. And actually Emery's name is the name of a rock daisy, so that's why these daisies are here. So these requests that each family makes contribute to the design in, I think, wonderful ways. It makes it all a collaboration. And actually, the reason for the flying unicorn in Venice history is that we originally had a huge carousel in Venice. Oh, we've got an airplane going overhead now. So this is a picture of the original carousel that Venice had out on the pier, and this was a Denzel carousel, and it had all horses. So when Emery said she wanted a unicorn, I thought, okay, well that's a horse with magic, so that makes sense for Venice, and lets everyone learn about the original Denzel carousel. So then we've got the caped lioness. Something of an obstacle course moving through here. The carousel will have 8 of these full-size animals that are for children or adults to ride. The symbol of the Republic of Italy, or of Venice rather, is the winged lion, the St. Mark's lion, and Venice, Italy has them, and we in Venice had them. Abbot Kinney had carved them right along windward as you enter the beach. So when I spoke with this family, the daughter said, well, could it be a girl lion wearing a cape and a tiara? So that's how she has a superhero cape and a tiara. So carousel will have a total of these 8 large animals. So this is the duck, and she pays tribute to all the canals that used to be, and also to Ostrich, who was my neighbor here and was a fabulous contributor to culture in Venice. He created the Pacific Resident Theater, and very generous. And then this is the ostrich, with my dog Astro riding on the back of the ostrich. There was an ostrich farm when Abbot Kinney originally owned all the land that is now Ocean Park, Santa Monica, to the marina. So there was an ostrich farm in that land then. And then finally is the grunion. So, and our grunion has a little flapping tail. Grunion are a pretty unique fish, and we have them just here on the Venice coast. So, so those are the big animals, and then we have a chariot, which is, I can show you the miniature. So it will be the Dogtown dog and hip cat. So it's a dog and cat riding a skateboard. And that is like a little bench that will carry 2 people. And then we have 5 kiddie swings. And actually I just sent the swings out, but the swings will also each be animals and objects. So one is going to be the tiger. The minor league baseball team that Venice had was the Venice Tigers. And the sponsor of this is Tammy Pardee. Her nickname is the Tiger. Another one we'll have will be a monarch butterfly, because we all love our ecology and care about our butterflies. And then that adds up to 15 riders will be on the carousel, and it's bicycle propelled, no motor. So one child will be able to pedal a bike, as 15 adults and kids can ride at a time. And then the carousel will have these portraits of people who have brought something wonderful to Venice, to the history, to the culture of Venice. And this is Abbot Kinney, who was the original developer who created Venice. This is his vision. And here we have Arthur Reese with his granddaughter Sonia. And Arthur was Abbot Kinney's first main man for being like the decorator of Venice. And actually today visiting is Arthur's great-great-granddaughter, who we will meet in a moment, Nyla. So she's what, 5th generation Venice, a little bit of Venice royalty, and I'm thrilled to have her input and her grandmother Sonia's input on the carousel. And that's how like all the stories come to life. Have these 8 big animals, and then it has 1 chariot and 5 kiddie swings, and all of these are, you know, all but varnished. So as soon as we get the go-ahead on the permits, these could all be installed, and then my plan is to continue with carving smaller elements like these portraits on the rounding board, over time. So I think people oftentimes like to watch me carving and like to see the additions come in. So those can all happen in the next, year or 2 or 3 or 4. We can keep embellishing it as time goes on. And there's no end to the sanding that can be done to make them nice and smooth. So this is Nyla, and she's ready to ride the rocket ship today. Right. There we go. Okay, and Nyla, you had a special way of riding the rocket ship, right? Let's see your, take your pose. So look toward that way. Excellent. So Nyla has actually taken these special poses on each of the carousel animals, and so we've started a strain of pictures that we call Nyla Knows. Nyla knows how to ride the rocket ship. You know what, can you ride it again and have this arm go out and look over at the camera. Okay, this is how Nyla knows how to ride the rocket ship. She has found ways to strike a pose, bringing out stories for each of the carousel animals and the rocket ship. So today in the studio we have special guests, Sonia Reese and Nyla. So these are, Sonia Reese is Arthur Reese's granddaughter, so 3rd generation Venice royalty. Arthur Reese was Abbot Kinney's main decorator. He was the Wizard of Venice. And so Nyla, being Sonia's granddaughter, is 5th generation Venice royalty, or great-great-granddaughter of Arthur Reese. So Nyla, would you like to take a pose on the Venice Flying Carousel rocket ship?
Yes, I would.
Pretend you're...
That looks like the fish pose.
The fish pose. What the ruffle like?
What would it be like, rocket through space?
That's how you did it.
Like your father did.
Then I'd probably just be pressing buttons, so.
Ride the carousel, Ostrich, and strike your pose. Nyla has special ways of riding each of the carousel animals. She's the only person who has done this, but it's perfect because the carousel is all about stories, history, and creating new history and stories and fun times. So here we have a yes. Both Nyla and our lioness have a tiara, and the lioness has a superhero cape, but I know that Nyla also seems to have superpowers, so very appropriate. So, okay, strike your lioness pose. What's your lion? So I do the big carving with power tools, and then the little details I go back in with these hand tools. And these portraits I'm going to cover in gold leaf, then the same way that the traditional jester heads were done. And other parts, though, of the rounding board will all be painted. And the animals on the carousel will not be painted. They'll just have a varnish on them so that you'll see all the carving.